All right, let's keep this optimization train rolling. Last video, we finished up with our data loading VC. We put that in place. In this video, we're going to start with some random miscellaneous stuff, and then we're going to come back to this follower list VC to optimize our collection view a little bit. So the first kind of random stuff we're going to handle is go back to our image view, our GF avatar image view. Is a lot of these images, right? Remember I said we were going to update our constants file with the images? Well, first of all, doesn't need to be force unwrapped. You can remember that from 2 videos ago, I believe. But what we're going to do is, again, we're going to search through a whole project for anywhere we're using UI image and just refactor this all right now. So do Command C on that placeholder image, go back to our constants file and images here. We're going to put this one at the top. You can do static let placeholder equal and then paste that there. So now we're going to have images.placeholder. I don't think the H is capitalized. So lowercase h. And now we can go hit the back button. Now instead of this, we can do images.placeholder. Do Command B to make sure that was good. Cool. And we're going to do this for all of our images, right? We don't want to have that UI image equals string. We don't want to have that in our code base outside of our constants file, right? We want all of our images to live here. So if you're not familiar with like searching the whole project, there's a little hourglass up here. You can set the scope here in project. You can also set the scope in like a specific, file, specific area. We want to search the whole project. So let's search for UI image. Search for that. Okay. And let's take we're just going to kind of look through here, the search results on the left. Sorry if that's a little small. And we can kind of click through these to make sure. You can even do this and go down just to make sure you are initializing images in the right spot. Like I'm just tapping the down arrow on my keyboard to go to anywhere we have UI image in our project. And I'm looking for this kind of stuff, right? This is what I'm looking for when I search this. So empty state logo, we're going to copy this and go back to our constants file. Do static let empty state logo. Gotta keep moving our equal signs here. Equals, bam, that. Cool. And again, we're just refactoring all of our images here. So if I go back to the search, we can continue here. Keep going down where we were right here. So now I can do a Command B to make sure I get my autocomplete. I can do images dot empty state logo. Cool, good to go there. And you can see this looks a lot nicer. And again, if I'm reusing images throughout my app, real quick and easy. So let's keep going down our search here. Anywhere we have UI image. Okay, here we have a bunch. Well, these are all of our SF symbols. We've already done that, but we did it with the string, right? We can make this a little better, right? Because we still have to initialize a UI image with, SF symbols repos, right? We can clean this up a little bit. So back in our constants file, we already have an enum for SF symbols, except like I said, we just have the strings here. Well, we can go ahead and make this an image, just like we did here. So if I do UI image, and remember, it's not just named, it's system image, or system name, I'm sorry, system name, and then we'll put this, nope, just this. I think I got the placeholder too, yeah. All right, we'll delete the placeholder. So now, instead of like initializing the UI image in the code, I can just call sfsymbols.location and get the one I want. So let's copy this here, go paste, 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 and parentheses after each one. I'm doing this kind of a weird unorthodox way, but you get what I'm doing here. And then hold Option, drag down, and then hit the, whoops, that's not what we wanted. Hold Option, drag down, and then hit the space bar to space all those over. So now we're initializing our UI image, system name, and then whatever the string is for our SF symbols. So now if I go back to the search where we were down here, nope, there we were, SF symbols. Cool. Now instead of, like I said, we don't need to initialize this UI image anymore. We can just do SF symbols dot, what was this one? Repos? Repos. This one's GIS. So SF symbols dot gist. I'm going to pause here for a second so you can see how much neater the code is right there rather than what we had down here. Again, these are small optimizations, but they really add up and make your code base nice and easy to use. So this one's followers, SF symbols dot followers, and then following. So now we have SF symbols dot following. Okay, so now we've that's it. Okay, so Now we've gone through our whole search. I like to search again because it'll update. And then now I see, okay, cool. In my constants file over here on the left, I see that's where all my UI images, and you can minimize each file as you go. Cool. In my network manager, I can see the images. That's not what I'm looking for. Like I know we've already refactored those. GF user info header view. Okay, looks like we have this one, the SF symbols location, where we're initializing the UI image. I no longer need to do that. I can just do SF symbols.location. Good to go there. And let's just kind of flip through these to make sure we're good. And again, I'm kind of showing off the power of the search feature over on the left if you're not familiar with that. So we've now refactored all of our UI images stuff. Our SF symbols were refactored out, and all the images we're using in the app have been refactored out too. Makes the code base a bit cleaner. And then more just kind of maintenance UI helper here. I made it a struct. Again, I think I've said this before in the class, but you can do enum here. And the reason being is because like if this was a struct, I can initialize, like I'm just going to do this up here. I could do UI helper. It's not going to let me do it now, but here, let me take it back to a struct. I don't know if it'll let me do it here either. I can be like, let help equal UI helper. And I can initialize just an empty UI helper. We don't want people to do that because you can't really do anything with an empty UI helper. So in order to kind of get rid of that ability, you can make this an enum, so you can't initialize like an empty one. You just have to use it like UI helper dot create 3-column flow layout like we're using it. So small little adjustment there. Next up in our loading view, so let's go to views, or it's not views, it's in our extension for the UI view controller, extensions. UI view controller, nope, it's no longer there anymore. Man, things are moving around. It is in our view controllers, our data loading VC that we just created. So here I made a small little mistake here. If you notice, we're adding the activity indicator. We're adding that to our container view that we have here. However, in my constraints, I am constraining it to the view.centerAnchor, view.xAnchor. It still works, obviously, right? Like the app works. However, it's not proper. Like we should be doing container view dot center Y and container view dot center X, because activity indicator is a subview of the container view. Again, it's not going to affect our behavior. It's just cleaning up some sloppy code, if you will. So that's a quick little fix. Since we're on this topic of our data loading VC, let's go to our empty state view here. So that is in our custom views, empty state view here. And let's go to how we're constraining the whole empty state view. And actually, let's run this on the iPhone SE so you can see the problem that we're going to solve here. Pull up the simulator. There it is, good old iPhone SE. So, okay, you see we've already handled our login screen. We got that covered. So let's go to our empty state. So wendy.aluna for the empty state. Doesn't look great on the iPhone SE. And this is pretty standard, right? You'll build your UI looking great for the iPhone 11 Pro size, and it looks great on the iPhone 8, and then you run it on the iPhone SE, and it's just like, ugh. So let's look at this, and you see we have our constraints here. I'll make my face disappear so you can see it. So our message label here, we're constraining to center Y minus 150. So what that means is we're moving it up 150 points, which is fine on the bigger screen sizes, but as you can see, on the smaller iPhone SE screen size, that moves it up too far. So we need to do something similar to what we did with the login screen where we moved it up, except we want to move the message label down a little bit on the iPhone SE. And then you'll notice if we move it down, now it's probably going to run into our GitHub Octocat logo. So we probably want to move the GitHub Octocat logo down as well. And you can see here we have the bottom anchor.constraint. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the search VC, where we conditionally check for is iPhone SE or iPhone 8 zoomed, and we're going to adjust this constant real quick. So like we did before, we need to create the constraint kind of outside of this activate here. So we need to do let message label center Y constraint equal message label, and basically we take this. So let's just copy, paste, and then let's get this out of the array. And then we have to do message label center Y constraint dot is active equals true. We have to activate this outside of the array. So now that we have this going on outside of the array, and now we need to create our constant. So let We'll do label center Y constant, just to kind of mix up the naming a little bit. Because if I did message label center Y constant, that's very similar to message label center Y constraint. So that's why I named it a little different. And again, this is a CG float. And that is going to equal, and again, we're going to use the ternary operator. This is the same thing we did before. So I'm going to do device types.is iPhone SE or device types.is iPhone 8 zoomed. And if that is true, so if it is on that, instead of the -150, let's just try -50. We'll move it down 100 points. And then if that's false, let's try, oh no, we want to keep it to -150, right? Because we already know it looks good on the other phones. So let's kind of clean this up a little bit here now that we've got a little bit more code in here. And again, this looks like super long because my text is huge. On your normal screen, it probably won't look that big. And oh, I forgot the question mark part of the ternary operator. Let's do a Command B to make sure things are good. Okay, so now we just need to use this label center.y constraint. So instead of -150 for the constraint, we're going to put in our conditional constant, which again, if it's on the iPhone SE or the iPhone 8 Zoom, it's going to be -50. If not, it's going to be -150. And now let's do basically the same thing here for our logo image view. And if we're really cleaning this up, this configure thing is getting quite long. So this would be another aspect where I would break it down into each one. And we'll do that real quick after this. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this because it's going to be very similar. So copy, paste. So this is going to be logo image view. We'll say logo bottom constant. And we'll figure out the numbers here in a bit. And this is going to be logo image view bottom constraint is going to be equal to the logo image view bottom constraint down here. Let me move this up. So again, we're just going to get this out of here, get rid of the comma at the end. We don't need that comma. Oh, we need that comma there though. And now I need to replace this with that. So it's logo image view dot bottom anchor dot constraint equal to self dot bottom 40. We're going to change that here in a second. So now we need to set the is active to the logo image bottom constraint. So now this 40 number, we need to figure out what's a good one for the iPhone SE. And we'll do a little trial and error here. To be honest with you, I haven't dialed this in. So you'll see some trial and error in real time. So let's change that 40 to logo bottom constant here. And then, so now we know if it's false, we definitely want it to be 40, right? Because that's what it was before. That's what we know looks good. So in the -50, let's actually make this, we want to move it down a little bit. So let's try -140. We'll move it down 100 points, just like we moved the label down 100 points. So it should be an equal shift down. And actually, that's not down 100 points. This is the weird thing about going from positive to negative, right? It's actually going to be -60 to move it down 100 points, right? Because if you're at +40 and you need to go -100, that's going to be -60. So my bad there. So now let's test this before we refactor this big function now. So now on the iPhone SE, when we run this, we're going to move this over here, do Wendy-Aluna, get followers. Okay, I have that backwards apparently. So our label got moved down, except that I think that label got moved down too far. So probably 100 is going to be too much. And then I need to go higher. I need to go 140 here is what I need to go here. I went the wrong way. Again, sometimes I get the negative on the bottom, like confused. So we need to go 140 there. And then moving this down 100 was a bit much. So maybe moving this down 100 is going to be a bit much too. So let's actually just try 100. So we'll move it down 60. So -150 to -50, it's going to be -90, right? If we're only going to move it 60. All right, let's try this again. And again, this is the actual process of like tweaking and dialing in the UI. Nope, I need a empty state. Wendy-Aluna. Cool. Okay, so I think our label's good. I think our AutoCAD is too far down. Let's actually move our label up just a tad, like maybe 10 points, and then our AutoCAD up like 20 points. So let's make this -80, not 800, 80, and then we want to move this, up? Wait, let me pull that back up. We want to move that back up a little bit, so maybe 80 here as well. Again, you're seeing the dialing in and the tweaking in real time. This is the only part of any video I've showed this process, but I decided to leave this in here so you can see it. Okay, I think that looks good. I mean, of course, you could tweak it more if you like, but that looks pretty good. So let's also test this on the iPhone 11 Pro side by side. I do this a lot as well. If I pull up the simulator, where I'll have the simulators running side by side so I can see the different, looks. Cool. So that's how you see it on a big phone. And then now you can see we've tweaked it on the iPhone SE. Empty state's now looking good. Good to go. Let's get off that. Moving on to the next topic, which is refactoring this, right? Because now that we've added this code, our configure method, it's pretty big and pretty clunky. So what I'm going to do is split these up again. So we're going to do private func configure message label. And this is just 100% pure code aesthetics, right? So add subview, I know I want that into the message label. I know I want all this stuff for the message label down here. And then I need my constraints for the message label. And I'm just cut and pasting all my message label stuff here. And I need to do this for the message label. Well, let me type that out. That'll be easier. If I do ns layout constraints dot activate, and I need an array, which I have here, so I can cut that. We can paste that. I don't need this comma at the end. So now our configure message label is good. Let's check. We're adding the subview. We're configuring a little bit. Here's our custom constraint code based on the iPhone SE, and here's our normal constraints. Cool. So let's make sure we call that now, configure message label. And then real quick now too, private func configure logo image view. And the same thing, except now all we have left is the logo image view stuff, so we can do a much bigger cut and paste here. And let's make sure we call this configure logo image view. Oh, paste that there. Okay, hit Control I, line that up a bit, and now we can basically just get rid of all this excess spacing that we have here. Cool, and we don't need to do that. Okay, so now we have private func, configured logo image view, configure message label, and we're calling it in configure. And we're still calling it configure there. So that was a quick refactor of our empty state view. Again, super quick testing, because anytime you're moving stuff around, refactoring, always want to test. So Wendy-Aluna. All right, everything looks good. Good to go. Empty state, tweaked and refactored, moving on. So that took care of like the miscellaneous stuff. Now let's go to our follower list VC for a collection view. So one nice little optimization, and this was discovered through the comments. So again, the comment section in this course has been super valuable. I've even learned some stuff, while people taking the course and listening to the comments. So what we can do here in our update search results. So we can make this whole search bar cancel clicked and conforming to the UI search bar delegate basically obsolete. And the way this was discovered, let me actually run this as it is now, and I'll show you the problem that actually sparked this kind of discovery. So if I do SALLEN 0400, hit get followers, what was happening is if you do like VAL on my, or VAN on mine, and then you slowly start deleting characters, so 1, 2, and then now once this is empty, you can see it didn't go back to my regular followers. I'm still on the same search state as if it was just a V, right? So when I tap just V, like nothing's gonna happen. And when I delete that V, it's not going back. So this bug is what kind of sparked this line of thinking. And you see when I hit cancel, it goes back, but it doesn't do that when I delete everything. So let's go back to Xcode, stop this. Turns out here in this guard statement where we're checking to see if the search bar.txt, is empty, this actually fires off, when you hit the cancel button too. So here in this guard statement, if we call update data on followers, and we want to update this on our normal followers, right? Because this is what happens when our search bar is empty. We want to go back to our initial follower state. And we also want to filtered followers.remove all. We want to get rid of those. So what was discovered here was when you do this, like again, this update search results gets fired off even when you hit cancel, and it'll return the filter as empty. So what happens is we can actually get rid of this whole search bar cancel button clicked, except however we want to do is searching equals false. Basically, this code essentially gets moved up into this guard statement, but it allows us to get rid of this whole function, which is a search bar delegate. So that was the only search bar delegate we were using. So now we no longer have to conform to search bar delegate here in this extension. We can get rid of that. And scrolling up a bit, well, we'll do a command B, you'll see we'll get an error. So scrolling back up to this error, when we configured our search controller, we had to conform to the delegate. Well, we no longer have to conform to that delegate. So I can delete this whole line of code. So that little bug fix allowed us to delete a little bit of code, which is nice, and it's a nice optimization. So now let's test what I just did, and you'll see how it's working now. So SALLEN 0400, get followers. So now just like before, I did VAN, and then now as I delete one by one, cool, that's VA. Now we're back to just V. And then now, remember before when I deleted this V, nothing happened. Now when I delete it, we go back to my original list of followers. So that's great. Now let's keep testing it. If I do VAN, back to where we were. And now if I hit cancel, we're back to my initial list of followers, just like before when we implemented cancel button tapped. So we no longer need that. So nice little optimization there to get rid of some code. The best code is always the code you delete. It's always fun. You'll discover this as you start refactoring and writing better code. It's so fun to write better code and then just delete a huge chunk of code. Even though that wasn't a huge chunk, deleting code is always fun. So that is a nice optimization on our search. Next up, another kind of, it's not a bug. I guess it's kind of a bug. It's just kind of janky animation. So let's pull this back up again. Let's get my search results up. And then when we pick a random person, let's scroll down a bit, right? Pick a random person. Hopefully they have followers. Cool, 60 followers. And I hit get followers. Watch this animation. It's kind of janky. So hit get followers, and you see look where we end up. We're we have half of this top line showing when it really should be here. I got to scroll down a little bit to get there. Well, the problem here lies in, let's get out of here, lies in this line of code down here. This basically collection view.set content offset to 0. Basically, this is moving this up to 0. However, we want to be more specific than that. We want to move it to our first row of items in our collection view. So here we can do collection view.scroll to. We have a scroll to item, right? And it takes in an index path, a scroll position, and if you want to animate it. So we can do index path and then initialize this with item and int. So item is so row is using a table view. Item is using a collection view. So item 0, section 0, right? We want to go to the top of the section, top of the item, and then we can do dot top. Let me show you the options there. You can do dot bottom, left, right, top. We want to do dot top, and then animated is true. We want to animate this. And now we can go ahead and delete this scroll content offset to 0, delete that line, and we're going to go ahead and test this now. Now we're going to get a nice or a much smoother animation. So that's 0400, hit get followers. Again, pick a random follower here and hit get followers. And now you can see it scrolls up nicely to the top. We're not cutting those off. It's much smoother and we're already at the top. So good stuff there, good optimization. We'll stop that and move on to the final one of the video. So actually, let me run this again. I actually can't trigger this bug. Maybe I'm not fast enough. But I'll illustrate it and you can see. I guess I could go through some hoops to trigger this by slowing down my network connection. I don't want to go through all those hoops, but in theory, you'll get what I'm saying here. So now that we have this up and running, let's look at our code here, our pagination code that pulls in the next 100 users. And that's this right here, right? So just to review this, right? If the content offset, or if offset Y is greater than content height minus height, basically are we at the bottom? If we have more followers, right? We increment the page and then we make the network call on the next page, right? So if we're on page 1, we're going to call page 2, etc. Now, what would happen if, say, we're on a super slow network connection, right? And going back up to the simulator, let's get rid of the iPhone SE. See ya. So now you can imagine if I'm scrolling down, if I was on a really slow connection, and while this was loading, I just kept jamming it at the bottom, right? You could see that we're going to keep incrementing this and keep making this network call on a slow connection before the previous network call is done. And then, these are on concurrent background threads. So now you get into some race conditions. If one, comes back first, now it just can get messy. So what we want to do is we don't want to we want to like block the user from requesting the next set, the next page of followers until the current one has come back, right? We just want to keep that loading screen up there. And if they scroll down again, we're just not going to make a network call if we're still loading. So we need to check to see if we're loading. So again, real quick, just like we had is searching, var is loading more followers equals false to start, because we're not doing that from the start. And then here in our network call, here when we first make the network call, we can do is loading more followers equals true, right? We're loading here. And once all this is finished, right, where network call comes back, we run our switch statement, all that stuff. Here we can do self.is loading more followers equals false. So we're done. So basically this is going to flip back to false once our network call is done, whether it gets an error, gets followers, whatever. After all that's done, we're going to flip that back to false. So now we just have to add that check down here in our offset Y. So we can just kind of combine these guard statements similar to what we did when we refactored our network call for the images. So we can do is loading more followers, except we don't want that to be true. We want to check to make sure it's false. So we can do the exclamation point or the bang in front of it. So now this guard statement reads like, hey, make sure the user has more followers, and then also make sure is loading more followers is false. If those are both the case, then we will go ahead, increment the page number, and get more followers. However, if is loading more followers is true, we're just returning, we're not going to make another network call. So that blocks us from making repeated network calls. Again, on a slower connection, this is more of an issue. Like I said, you'll have multiple network calls going on background, concurrent threads. You can get into some race conditions. It gets messy. Let's just prevent that. So that wraps up this optimization video. Only a couple more to go. Let's keep it moving.